I'm really excited about this message today because it's a message that I need and that I am currently exercising in my life today. It's really hot in this room, so please bear with me. I'm actually trying to stay hydrated, please. So pray for me. So I want to talk about pacing yourself. It's something I talked about briefly on a previous episode. I think it was like 2 episodes ago. But I really want to unpack it some more just because I feel like God has revealed more things to me about this topic. I realize that I'm scared. I'm not scared about because I don't believe in God, really. I haven't been scared or fearful or anxious because I don't believe that God's been hearing my prayers, that God's going to answer my prayers, whatever it might be. I feel like God has made me a promise, and he's made he's asked me to do different things in this world. But my anxiety has stemmed from me thinking that I'm going to mess it up, that I'm going to be the one that screws everything up. And for a number of reasons, it could be because I feel like I'm not working hard enough. Or it can be because I feel like I'm not qualified enough, whatever it might be. I just felt like God has given me a promise and it's going to be great. Everything can be cool. But of course, I just don't need to mess it up. So you can imagine I put all this pressure on myself. Don't mess up. Don't mess up. Don't mess up. God has given you an opportunity. God's giving you these things. God's giving you all these different tools to use. Don't mess it up, Emmanuel. And I think that ultimately, sometimes that could be motivation. Like, hey, just don't mess up. God's giving you all this stuff. Now it's just on you to work hard and all different stuff. Sometimes that could be really good motivation. But at the same time, it causes what it did for me. And it could be for you, or maybe this is not about you or not for you. But this is a message to those people who, because they hear those messages, it doesn't necessarily translate to motivation, but it translates to just unneeded pressure in your life. And that is what it translated to me. So much so that I was starting to do everything at 100 miles an hour. Everything I did needed to be done quickly. Everything I needed to be done needed to be done when I wanted it, how I wanted it, and there was no room for any type of mistake or detour or lagging, whatever it might be. I was moving at 100 miles an hour. Now I'm just gassed. I'm tired and I'm worn out. And then I feel very overwhelmed because just because I feel worn out doesn't mean that the pressure and those voices and the anxiety just starts to wear off. Like now I'm just tired and unable to run as fast as I can. And that pressure is still talking to me. So I wanted to talk to the people who might share my experience in that. Those people who are being stalked by anxiety, stalked by feeling like they're not working hard enough, and that they are the ones that are possibly going to foil God's plans in their lives because they're not working hard. It's not so much that I was chasing after the prize, doing what needed to be done in order to get the prize. I wasn't chasing after the prize. I was running away from anxiety. And that's what the problem was. I was not chasing after the prize. I was running from the anxiety. I was running. So maybe I thought that I was chasing after the prize and I was doing what I needed to do in order to get what needed to be done. But in actuality, the only reason why I was working, or maybe not the only reason why I was working, because it could be a mixture of both. But the main reason why I was working was because I just didn't want the anxiety to win, and I didn't want to feel a certain way, like I wasn't working hard enough, so then I'd work hard. But I think that there's a real big problem with that. I feel like it causes you to really be hard on yourself. And it just exerts so much pressure on you. And it's just pressure that doesn't need to be there. And I mean, the pressure could be from you. It could be, your vision of what you feel like you need to do. The anxiety could really just be coming from you. Maybe you're a perfectionist, whatever it might be. Or maybe it's rise and grind Twitter, because that exists. Maybe it's somewhere in social media. You see all these people, get up, let's do this, let's do that. And it's like, yeah, that's great. And it motivates a lot of people. And I think it's really good. And sometimes I'm that person that's, in rise and grind Twitter. But at the same time, like, if that's not for you, then don't listen to the message. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to pace yourself. Not every day you have to go 100 miles an hour. Sometimes we go 100 miles an hour because we're comparing ourselves to other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, like he's doing this. Oh, that means I got to work hard. And mind you, there's good sides to this where it's like, oh, okay, that's motivating me to do more. But then I think that all this pressure becomes bad because when it starts to dictate how you make decisions, you're in a different game. I feel like you're in a different game. I feel like that's the problem. The problem happens when you allow the pressure in life, the anxiety in life, the fear in life, the comparison in life to fuel your decisions, to dictate the decisions that you make. Like I said, there's an upside to the anxiety. There's an upside to fear. You know what I'm saying? And I don't really believe that fear and anxiety can be good, but I feel like God can use bad things like fear and anxiety to help us sometimes. But at the same time, when it starts to impact your strategy to get to the prize, you have to slow down and you have to readjust your mindset. Saul was the first person that God chose to be the anointed king over the children of Israel after the children of Israel asked God for a king. But there was a particular moment when God told Saul, hey, go to this land, conquer these people, destroy everything, take no captives, no hostages, do that. Saul said, okay. He went there and they took over the land, but the problem is they weren't supposed to take any of the gold, they weren't supposed to take any of the riches and the pottery, whatever it might be, but they did. And they also kept the king alive and took him captive, which they did. And he was just completely disobedient to God. And because of that, God removed his anointing. And the reasoning that Saul gave as to why he disobeyed God was in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 24. And he said basically because he was scared of the people and their voice, and he cracked under pressure. The pressure he received from the people the people he was governing is what caused him to make the decision to disobey God. You're running, but are you chasing after the prize or are you running away from anxiety? You have to understand the difference. You have to understand the difference. You can't allow it to make the decisions in your life. You can't, like, we get this notion that, oh man, if I'm always doing 100%, not 100%. If I'm always moving at 100 miles per hour, then I'm doing my best. But that's not the same thing. Moving 100 miles per hour all the time is not the same thing as doing your 100% best all the time. It's not the same thing. Moving 100 miles per hour, you don't have time to strategize. When you're running away from anxiety, you don't have time to strategize. When you're chasing after something, you have to have a strategy. When you're chasing after a prize, you have to have a strategy. And when you work, you're going to do what you have to do. You're going to do your 100% best at the things that you need to do when you need to do it. And I love to paint this analogy of chasing versus running because think about it. When you're running away from something, you can't pace yourself because you don't control the pace. When you're running away from anxiety, you are allowing anxiety to set the pace of your life because you're running away from it. But when you're chasing after a prize, that's when you can be strategic. That's when you can be more rational. Okay, at this moment, I'm going to go this fast. At this, I'm going to save my energy. So then when I get this opportunity, I'm going to cut them off and I'm going to get that's strategy. You can't do that if you're running away from something. You can only do that when you're chasing something, when you're pressing towards something that's ahead of you. Slow down. When you're fueled with all of this fear and anxiety, it's causing you to go faster than you need to go. It's causing your mind to move faster than you need to go, and you get worn out. Slow down. Pause. Maybe you need to take a day off. Maybe you need to take a day off and you need to just, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this day to plan out my strategy. Maybe I'll write a line by line plan of strategy on how I'm going to do the A, B, and C in order to get me to the point where I can start to do D. Like that's strategy. That's just as important, if not the most important thing that you could do. Just as important as running, just as important of actually acting. You have to have those times to strategize. And another thing I would say is trust God. Because a lot of times that anxiety comes from just not trusting. Like I said, I'm talking about how, I'm scared that I'm going to be the one that messes up what God has for me. But when I doubt myself, I'm doubting God because I'm God's choice. And if I'm relying on God at every given moment, then I'm not going to make the wrong choice. If I'm acknowledging him before I make every choice, then how can I make the wrong choice? Be intentional about being rational. Don't allow the anxiety, the fear, and all the pressure in life to make the decisions for you. You don't have to move 100 miles per hour in order to be doing your 100% best. You could be doing 100% best and moving 50 miles an hour. Don't get caught up in rising grind Twitter. Don't get caught up in the comparison. Don't get caught up in maybe your parents are telling you need to do this, whatever it might be. You know what pace that you need to set for yourself in order to get to your goals. So follow that. And if you don't have that pace, you don't have that strategy, take the time to actually come up with it.